Сударь, сударь, как жалко, что вас нет рядом. Вы бы все поняли. Смотрите, море вокруг. И плыть нам вечно, и жить нам вечно.
When trying to think of how to describe this film to someone who's never seen it, I honestly don't know where I'd begin. Any plot synopsis would feel both too vague and too specific at the same time. How to describe this film? Beauty, poetry, nationalist, history. Russian Ark was filmed in the Winter Palace of the Russian State Hermitage Museum. All of it was done miraculously in one take. The first 3 attempts to shoot the film failed. The first failed at the 5-minute mark. After 2 more failed takes, there was only enough battery power left in the camera for one final attempt. And the few hours of daylight that they had on that one and only available day to shoot were nearly gone. 33 rented rooms in one of the most prestigious art museums in the world, 3 live orchestras, and over 2,000 actors. That is what was on the line in this final take. Could you imagine the obscene pressure? One out-of-place sneeze and the whole mega project is ruined. Like I said, this film is a miracle. We follow our unnamed protagonist through the museum halls and observe its vast array of artworks and people spanning nearly 300 years of Russian history. We are accompanied by a French diplomat, based off the real-life 19th century French traveler and writer Astolphe Louis Léonard Marquis de Custine, who often scoffs at Russia's artistic unoriginality in favor of the European masters. The interesting thing about the protagonist is that he is us, as we see everything from his point of view. He is us, and we are Russia. We experience this film as Russia, examining our own history and culture, wandering the halls of the museum, always looking to see what's in the next room. Why? What are we trying to see? What are we looking for? Filmed about a decade after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russian Ark is very much an answer to the cultural identity crisis the Russian nation felt at that time. Indeed, if the protagonist is an allegory for Russia, then his statements about how he came to be here at the very beginning of the film, hinting at some accident that took place, is almost certainly an allegory for the fall of the Soviet Union, and thus, he can't remember his identity. The USSR had been part of Russian identity for generations, and now, after the accident, it was gone. National identity, racial identity, ethnic, religious, sexual, geographic, generational, economical, political, cultural. These are all aspects to a person's overall identity. Our identities make us who we are, and while society chooses to stress different parts of our identity over others at different times, the fact remains that we all need our identities as anchors to steady ourselves in a sea of existential chaos. Kind of like an ark. Our identities are what define us, both as individuals and as members of a society, and so help us navigate our way forward. So what is Russia's identity without the Soviet Union? Where will the nation go next? this film attempts to search for an answer by observing its finest art in history. We, the protagonists, the Russian nation, wander through the halls trying to rediscover our past and know who we are. That way, we might know where we ought to go. Always, however, there is the European, to remind us of how we are always trying to imitate Europe, and therefore lack ideas of our own. Whether it's the Tsar bringing industrialization at the expense of Orthodox culture, or Gorbachev bringing Pizza Hut at the expense of communist purity, Russia can never be wholly Eastern. It always has an inferiority complex with the West. For most of the film, it is Europe leading Russia through the halls, always deciding which door the pair will go through next. I think it's rather telling how at the end, when the Russian protagonist finally begins to understand himself, he and the European go their separate ways. Life imitates art, doesn't it? The protagonist, the European, and everyone else in the film, they are all ghosts, timeless symbols of their age and cultural legacy. Maybe if we pay attention, we can learn something about them, and perhaps answer the question, what is Russia?